Hey guys, Dr. Ken Norberg here again. In 6 days I'm heading to deer camp. Can't wait. I tell you, here I'm 83 years old and I'm like a 10-year-old kid, all excited about the coming deer hunting season. Uh, a few things I wanted to bring up. You know, we're getting so close to deer hunting. I had another subject in mind for today, but I wanted to give you some good, really solid last-minute tips today. This might be my last YouTube presentation till after the deer season is over. If I have time, I might do another, but I wanted this one to be especially a good one. And I want to start by saying, you know, there's 15 million ways to hunt whitetails. Every hunter that goes in the woods does something a little different. And but one of the things that I've done differently than all those other guys is I've done 55 years of working my darndest to find better ways to hunt whitetails, especially older bucks. It was always my big goal since age 10 to take a big buck. And it's the same thing today. I can't wait to go up and hunt a big buck. If you looked at my last couple of YouTube presentations, you already know the kind of scouting we've been doing and what we found. And it looks like it's going to be a good year for buck hunting if the weather cooperates. And I think it will. But other things look good too. For example, well, I don't have any. I ran a sheet of paper, printed a sheet of paper on my computer this morning that details all the weather we can expect during the season we'll be up there hunting. You know, the wind directions and the temperatures and precipitation. And of course, that'll all change, you know, how weather forecasting is. But basically, we'll be hunting during the day, we'll be in the 30s, and at night we'll be in the 20s. Pretty mild for Minnesota for deer hunting. And we aren't going to have hip-deep snow like we did last year. And one of the really good things is that we're going to have little or no, well actually only a sliver of moon during the first few days of our hunting season. And after that we'll be in the dark of the moon. No moonlight at night, and that's exceptionally good for deer hunting. And I've talked about that before. But everything kind of points to a good season, and I'm getting pretty excited about that. When we were hunting, we found lots of big bucks. Us Nordbergs, we always start the deer season with 2 or 3 bucks to hunt, sometimes more. Well, we found plenty of bucks from 2.5-year-olds, mature bucks, from 2.5-year-old to, I don't know if we saw any tracks of 6.5, but it's always possible. It's very possible. We found, Johnny and I alone found 4 dominant breeding bucks. And in our country, dominant breeding bucks are big deer. They commonly weigh a little over 300 pounds, dressing out about 245. Some of them only have 8 points, but boy, are they nice 8-point racks. And a lot of them are 10-pointers, and I've taken a 12 and a 13 up there. So they're decent bucks, but rare does anybody get one that qualifies for Pope and Young or Boone and Crockett. Well, Pope and Young, that's fairly easy. You only need 145, but Boone and Crockett record books. But we love the country. We love it a lot. And it's deep wilderness, and when we're hunting 2 and even 3 miles from the nearest road, we're pretty much alone. And we love that. We're very good at it. We're good buck hunters. Well, things that make us good buck hunters, I'd like to dwell on a little bit. And I'd like to start out by saying, you know, one of the things that most stand hunters do today is stand at the same, or hunt at the same stand site for days and days, and even season after season, which is so wrong nowadays. In the beginning it didn't matter, but today it really matters. And one reason is, you know, 50 million of us been culling the dumbest bucks in the woods for centuries. The deer that are not, you know, not terribly intelligent or cunning, we've been cleaning them out. That many of us, just huge numbers of hunters doing that for many, many, many years. And we've created a new race of whitetails as far as the mature bucks, mature whitetails are concerned, that are much smarter and much more elusive than they were, say, back in the 1940s when I began hunting, and 1960s and 1980s, and even the year 2000. That they're getting to be more and more difficult to hunt because we keep eliminating those less elusive bucks. You know, if you want to raise cattle that produce more milk, you get rid of the cattle that don't produce more, and you just keep breeding back to cattle that produce more and more milk. And the same process than going on in deer hunting. They're much more difficult to hunt today. And we've been hunting using tree stands since the 1980s all over the country. And there's hardly an older buck today that doesn't know all about tree stands and how to avoid them. And so things have to be done a little bit differently today, and well, quite a bit different. And I'll show you some of the tricks that I do to help make the difference. Sometimes it's just little things, you know. One of the things I do, knowing that wherever I sit opening morning, and I've got a spot where there's a big dominant buck there, and I've got 3 spots to sit opening morning depending on the wind direction. And so I can always be downwind or crosswind that we're expected to see the buck in this little valley with a nice little stream flowing in through it. This buck spends a lot of time in that little valley. Lots of his tracks fresh. When we were there a few days ago, fresh, shiny droppings made by this buck all over the place in there. Oh man, I can't wait to hunt that place. And we created a shortcut that cuts off about 3/4 of a mile to get there. Now, one of the reasons we're able to take advantage of that kind of knowledge is by not limiting ourselves to tree stands. Now, if we use tree stands opening weekend, we'll have, I would say at least 4, maybe 5 hunters in my group sitting in tree stands opening morning. And they'll be using different tree stands, so each one will use 1 to 2 a day, all through the first weekend of the season. But usually by the 3rd day, all of those guys in tree stands will be switching to ground level hunting. Use a portable stool that straps your back. These are homemade stools. They're made out of wood, like mine. You've seen it before. I like wood because if you bump this on a tree trunk, and that happens a lot when you're walking through the woods, it makes a wood-on-wood sound, which is common. A windy day, there's tree branches bumping on other tree branches all the time. Doesn't frighten whitetails. But if it's a metallic sound, if you have a metallic, a stool with metallic legs and it bumps a tree, that sound is only made by hunters. And whitetails who are older than yearlings, 2.5 years of age or old, they know metallic sounds are made only by humans. Place to stay away from. So that's one little problem I like to get rid of, and that's why I insist on it. I made my own stool many years ago, and I made it out of wood. But if you don't have time to do that, or the ability to create a stool like that, get the metallic one and use it for the first time. If you've never done that, take time this year to give it a try. It won't cost you a lot of money. You can buy stools pretty cheaply nowadays, comfortable with backrests on them and everything. But give it a try. But just if it doesn't work this year, don't come to me, don't send me a letter saying, oh, that doesn't work. You know, it took me 55 years to make this thing become a really good way to hunt. And the first time you try it, it might not work at all, but it might surprise you like crazy. You might have the biggest buck you ever saw standing only 10 yards away all of a sudden. And once that happens, boy, are you going to be sold, especially if you get them. Now, that's one of the tips I want to talk to you about. When you hunt with a stool, using natural cover, you know, there's all kinds of in the woods, where you can sit down and be well hidden in front and in back. Back is just as important as front because the stuff in back of you, a solid cover behind you, hides your silhouette, doesn't make it obvious. It can't be seen. If you're skylighted like up in the tree and there's a sky above you, or you got a lot of snow in the woods right behind you, your silhouette's going to be really easy to see for whitetails to see, no matter what you wear, especially when you move. Now keep in mind too, blaze orange is extremely visible to whitetails. You know, it's safe. Us hunters can see it really well. Well, one thing that's different about whitetail eyes is they lack receptors in their retinas for colors in the red spectrum. So when they see blaze orange, they don't see blaze orange. They see white. And as the sun shining, it's glowing white. And you know, it could be glowing white and be maybe just your cap way over there in the woods somewhere, and they see this thing way over there move, and it's glowing white. Well, they might think maybe it's a deer with his tail up. There's something dangerous over there. Or the only other thing it could be is a hunter with blaze orange on. So keep that in mind. That's the reason, you know, when you're sitting at ground level on a stool, I always sit where I've got cover at least shoulder high. The only part the whitetail is likely to see, or see moving, is my head. Now, the human face is much lighter than color than any natural cover in the woods. Your head will look like the moon coming up when it's backed by anything green or brown like tree trunks. You gotta cover your face, especially when you're stand hunting at ground level. Especially since a lot of the deer you're gonna see are gonna be very close. They'll be within 30 yards. You won't believe it. Here comes the buck. Look at the big buck, right? You won't believe it. They can be so close to you. If you go to my the blog I just wrote, I just posted it this morning, you'll see a picture of my son John sitting in a natural blind bunch of brush that piled up next to a big boulder. He's sitting there, and right in front of him, laying on the ground, is this 8-pointer he shot from a distance of 3 feet. That's how close a whitetail can be when you're hunting at ground level. It should be no big surprise. And you're down here on the ground level with them. You don't want your face showing. Well, one of the things I do to make sure they aren't going to see my face is wear a camel head net. This is my favorite one. Let me show you this one. And you know, this would be a good idea even if you're a tree stand hunter. Wear something like this. And now I wear glasses, so I have to think about that all the time. Now, if the sun isn't shining on my face, this works just fine. You know, when it's really cold in the morning, it's quiet out there, and you're breathing, your breath can cause your glasses to get foggy, frosted up, because of the warm air coming from your nose going up to there. And whenever that happens, all I do is pull this down a little bit, so not so much my warm breath gets to my glasses, it goes out. So that cures that problem. And then, of course, you got to be safe. Then I put a cap on top, and the kind of cap I put on top is camo blaze orange. It'll still, the orange part will still look white, but it's going to be all broken up. And when that's sticking up on the cover I'm sitting on out there in the woods, it isn't going to be near as noticeable as solid blaze orange. So that's what I would do. But always wear a cap on top. You know, if you're just sitting out like this, some goofy guy sitting over there maybe 80 yards away, and he looks over and sees this brown thing moving there, and it's just high above the ground. You know, it can't be a squirrel. Must be a deer. Might take a shot at you. You don't want that to happen. So always put on a blaze orange cap on top, especially with if it's camel blaze orange. That's much better. So now your hands are just as bad. You know, when you raise your bow or your gun, all of a sudden here comes some more bare skin into line of vision with a deer standing a little ways away. You got to keep that covered as well. And for that I wear camel gloves like this. This pair is designed to keep me warm out in the woods for, down to say about 10 above zero. If it gets colder, I start wearing heavier gloves or even mittens that are easy to slip out of when a deer is coming. I spot a deer coming my way. But you got to cover your hands as well. That doesn't need to be camel. Your coat's camel, your cap's camel. Gloves can be just like this. Make them much more invisible. And you got to learn to operate your rifle or your bow using gloves, which you can do. I've done that for so long. Now, I mentioned something about if the sun is shining on your face. In that case, I might get glare off the lenses of my glasses. And when that happens, I slip on a different kind of a camel head net. And this one has no opening in the front, and yet it's as easy to look through as a screen on the window, no problem. I can aim, I can shoot, I can do anything I want with this thing on. and put my cap on over the top. Sometimes if I think, oh, if I put it down like this a little bit and put my cap on top, it helps to reduce the amount that is peeking toward the deer, but I can keep it open. So there's different ways to use a net like this, but this one is really good for when I'm not in shadows or hidden by a cover that goes this way across the front of my face, and the sun is shining. I put that one on. That's important to know. You know, those are little touches. When you're sitting at ground level, you need to cover skin, and that's important. At ground level too, you know, people complain the first time they ever do it. They got out there, geez, you can't see nothing. You can only see about 30 yards over that one. Maybe 50 at the most, peek through holes in the brush. How can you see if deer are around here? They complain. Well, the ones you see are always close. But sometimes when I'm out there, and I wear this little binocular, it's a fine binocular. It's a Bushnell, just a little one. No great weight, but it gives me all the extra vision I need. I see something moving over there, and I wonder what that is. You put it up there. Oh, it's just a squirrel. Or, damn, it's got antlers. You can see much better when you got a little vision like that along with you. And a little one like this is all you really need when you're hunting in forest cover to help make sure what you're looking at over there. Make sure it's a deer or a man or whatever. Another thing I carry is this. It's a pruner. And when I'm scouting or when I'm preparing a deer trail, we only use deer trails. We don't make our own trails. We share deer trails with deer in the woods, but only certain ones for deer hunting time. We have one big looping trail or one long dead-end trail that we use for looking for signs of older bucks. You know, big tracks and big droppings made by an older buck during the hunting season. And we find, gee, here one across the trail over here, and there's a feeding over there. That's where I'm going to hunt next. Or maybe even right now, you know, when I'm heading out to a different stand site. So it's good to know. But you get out there, most of our stand sites are in natural cover, and we do our best not to touch anything, because if there's any obvious changes in the vicinity of your stand site, big bucks are going to see it. Big bucks see, I mentioned it, destruction or construction, man-made construction, or excessive trailers in the vicinity of a stand site if you're not careful. But I'll sit down there in the morning in the dark. I usually try to get there a half hour before first light in the morning. So any deer that were near, if they heard me, you know, trying to figure out what's making those footsteps, after a half hour, they'll forget about me. They'll figure, I don't know what they figured for sure, but they act as if they decide, well, whatever it was, it isn't something dangerous, or it's sleeping, or it's not here anymore. It slipped away without being heard. So then they start doing their normal things, and maybe you just walk by you on this trail where all the big buck tracks were that you found earlier, or they start feeding over there in this feeding area right there. So within a half hour, usually things get back to normal, and I like to get that half hour out of the way before first light starts, because I don't want to miss an hour of that first light, because that first legal shooting hour of the day is the absolutely best one for taking older bucks. It's been my experience. A lot of guys argue about that. Guys, even one guy in my own camp said, oh, I get all my bucks in the evening. That's because he sleeps in a lot in the morning and hunts in the evening, so I guess he would get more in the evening. And one of my sons is pretty good at getting bucks in the evening too. I don't know how many times we've had to drag a deer out of the woods in total darkness because he got one just before dark. Seems to happen more often for him than anyone else in our camp. And you never know, you know, we get bucks in the middle of the day, especially when certain weather has triggered midday feeding, and that's not too uncommon in November and December, or for that matter, all winter. So that happens. I agree with that, but at least 85% of all the mature bucks I've ever taken in my how many years? 73 years of whitetail hunting now, have been taken during that first hour or two. Second hour is pretty good too. But that first hour is especially good. I don't know how many times I've been there, and it's just getting light, and there's one right there, and I'll shoot. And I'm out there field dressing, and I hear cars going by on the county road a few miles away, and all these guys speeding up that road to get to their stand sites. I'm already done. I already got my big buck early in the morning. People don't know that unless they do it. A lot of guys don't want to do that because they think, oh, I don't want to walk around the woods in total darkness and screw things up by chasing all the deer out of there and all that kind of thing. Well, that doesn't have to happen. As far as getting lost is concerned, I have no trouble with that. When we were out there scouting, like we did this last weekend, we made a new shortcut. No markings at all on the trees except fluorescent tacks. And there's lots of different kinds. There's a kind where they look like an ordinary tack, and you put one on the front and one on the back side of the tree. Lately I've been using these double-sided ones. You only have to put one on the side, and you can see it from both directions that way. But at any rate, with those tacks on there, when you go out there with a flashlight, geez, they all light up like little Christmas tree bulbs. No problem at all finding your way to your stand site without any difficulty. So I don't ever worry about that. That's no problem at all. I'm not going to get left. Besides that, I've been hunting there since 1990. I know 10 square miles of deer country like my own backyard. And even if I didn't have those things to find my way, I'm pretty sure I could end up where I went pretty fast, even in darkness. Sometimes I brag I could do it with my eyes shut, but I wouldn't dare try that, of course. But anyway, when I get there and I sit down, and now it's starting to get light, you know, just a little bit, just about time that green trees, evergreens around you, that looks black, you know, or start getting a little tinge of green on them, and I'm looking there, and oh, geez, there's some branches right out in front of where I'm sitting there, sticking up twigs, you know, maybe ½ inch in diameter or even less. That's not good for me. And the reason is I shoot a 7mm Magnum. Great big bullets. I bought my 7mm to go hunting grizzly bears up in the Yukon many years ago. And I had other firearms, the deer-sized firearms, but I bought this for that. And as my kids grew, I kept handing them my other deer rifles to use. And pretty soon all I had left, boy, these are in here tight. Well, all I had left was my big 7mm Magnum. See, they have this belt on the bottom part of the cartridge to keep them from exploding. This cartridge is flying out of my rifle barrel at about 31 to 3,300 feet per second, really fast. And a fast-moving bullet like that, so only 125 grain, but when it hits a twig, it explodes or deflects, ricochets. And so I need a clear spot. But what I learned to love about the 7mm, if you hit them in the neck or in that hump at the lower end of the neck where it comes by, or right through the chest, through the heart, they generally go flop, right down. No monkey business trailing deer. 7mm is so deadly that the shock wave that it creates when it passes through the flesh of a deer can stop the heart from working and lungs from working, all kinds of things from working. Just the shock is, if you shoot a deer, if you hit him in the neck and hit the trachea, the lungs will explode down in his chest. Imagine that. So the shock wave of a 7mm Magnum is very deadly and very humane on a deer. And I grew to love these 7mm long time ago. But anyway, I'll be sitting there and here's some twigs out in front of me. And I used to take care of them. I'd sneak out of there, be careful there's nobody around, don't hear a thing, not any movement whatsoever anywhere. I'll step out of there very quietly and start whittling away those things. Well, a much quicker, a much quieter way is carry a pruner, a good sharp pruner like this one. And just cut slowly and he dropped down. And there, got them all. Much better than making sounds of breaking twigs or cutting or anything like that. Just clip them off very quietly when you're out there in the woods. So it's worth the little extra weight of carrying one around when you're hunting bucks. These are these are little tips you use for when you're hunting really big bucks. Now, let's talk about this a little bit. Let's talk about stand sights, using this or any other stand sight for that matter. There's three things that are really important when you're hunting bucks. Now you can hunt anything else you want, but it's especially important when you're hunting big bucks. One of them is that you have to have good cover. You have to be well hidden where you're sitting on a stool. More important than because you're at the same level of deer and they're looking around on that same level where they are. There's wolves out there, especially where we hunt, and humans. So they're looking around like this, and so you're more apt to be seen at that level if you're moving. So the kind of cover you want will cover your, like say you move your legs out and stretch a little bit like that. The only thing they see is your head. And that's got the mask on and the camo on. So you're sitting there, and so you're much less likely to be seen. And then when you move, you can't be just looking around like this all the time. You got to move slowly, you know. Is it okay? I don't see anything there, and then move slowly, and anything there. All your movements should be really slow. Nothing, this kind of thing really attracts attention of deer no matter what color it is. They want to know what that is. So you move very slowly, you know, but you have good cover. That's important. Another thing that's important is that you got to be able to get there without alarming deer along the way. And we do it by using our trails to our favorite stand sites, or even any new stand site, is a deer trail that passes through dense cover. Now, a deer out there in an opening, say a feeding area right over there, they might say, well, there's something moving over there, but if they can't see what it is, they can't smell you, they can't tell by the sounds you make what you are, they aren't going to go away. They may just stand there and stare in your direction for a while, and or they might move to cover, like more cautious big buck might do that, a little side there, and they'll stand in there and they'll sniff and watch, you know, what is that over there? Something's over there. And then you get to your stand site and you put your stool up, no sound involved, not like putting a tree stand, you just put it lightly down the ground and sit down on it. Now you're absolutely quiet and you're not moving around. You're sitting there for a half hour waiting. They don't hear or see or anything anymore, and you're downwind, they can't smell you, and well, whatever it was, it's not dangerous, obviously, or it's moved away without us hearing it, so nothing to worry about. So first light comes, they're feeding and they're moving around and coming slowly, your buck is with a doe in heat, whatever. So anyway, good cover. And then you need good cover to get there as well. And some of our best spots are on the other side of a high ridge. It goes a long ways, and we'll move on the opposite side of the ridge, and there's feeding areas on the other side until we be able to move and cover right up to our ground level blind, natural blind, get in there and sit down, and they didn't see you do any of that thing. That's the wonderful thing. That's the important part of it. So you have to be able to get there without deer hearing or seeing or smelling. You've got to be downwind or crosswind all the way, and after you sit there. So those are important parts. And getting there, of course, is one of the hard parts. That's the hunting part. The other thing is, there's always got to be, if you're going to be a buck hunter, there's nothing worse than hunting where there's no bucks. No, you're just wasting your time. You know, within the 1 to 30 hours after you sit down at your stand site, every buck living within a mile is going to find you within 1 to 30 minutes. Or 30 hours, I'm sorry, 1 to 30 hours. Some within 30 minutes, or even 10 minutes. But anyway, with 1 to 30 hours after you begin using that stand site. Okay. And most of the time it'll happen without your knowledge. So you can't, one of the things, you can't be just sitting there after that, even though you haven't seen a thing. No bucks, there's not a thing around here. But what I hate more than anything is to sit where there are not very fresh tracks and or droppings made by a mature buck within easy shooting distance. If it's not there, there's no buck there. How about that? If it's there, then your odds of seeing that buck, if everything else is done right, are excellent, really good. But like I said, the trouble is, they can find you so quickly. Older bucks do. You know, they're very good at it. Any deer that lives 3.5 years or older in the woods knows all about you. Where you've been hunting for 2.5 or more years, or for 2 or more years, every mature buck knows you by your odors, by the way you look, by the way you walk, by the sound of your footsteps, by other sounds you might make, and by your smells. They got you pegged for the rest of their lives. And the minute they realize, here he is again, then they know that, well, this guy goes on this trail all the time, or that one over there somewhere, and he sits here all the time, or maybe over there all the time. Nothing to this. I can stay away from him the whole hunting season without him ever seeing me. And they do it all the time. And you don't know it because you never see it happening. But it happens in at least 8 to 9, 10 of every buck that comes within easy shooting range. You don't know it. Once in a while you do. Why don't make a mistake in getting really close and all of a sudden realize, holy cow, there's a hunter right there. And boy, it goes snorting and bounding away, making all kinds of rack. But if they're a safe distance away, they move away without any sound at all. You can't hear them, you can't see them. It might be right behind you because they just smelled you. You know, that happens a lot. A real lot. You can't stay away from all deer by staying downwind, but you always hunt downwind where you expect them to see. That always keeps your odds up there. So with a stool, that's no problem. That's a handicap, terrible handicap for tree stand hunters, because they can't do anything about it. They're stuck with that tree stand, or they think they are. But not us. That's not us guys using these stools. We can move anytime we want, anywhere we want. No problem at all, and we can do it silently. We can set up silently. We can always be downwind or crosswind, and where we expect to be. It doesn't matter what the wind direction is. We can always manage to get somewhere downwind or crosswind, or where we think that deer is going to be, like in that feeding area. And he's with a doe in heat right now because we know he's doing that because he's dragging his hoof from track to track in the snow. All kinds of things like that. But we move. And because we move, every time we move, we're in a spot never used before. We're always moving to stand sites that have never been used before, at least 100 yards or more away from any other previous loose stand site. Because when bucks find you, they stay 100 yards or more away from where they found you. So we move 100 yards or more, we're back in the ball game again. But it's totally unexpected. You catch them by surprise. That's the whole idea. We hunt to catch bucks by surprise, by hunting them where we've never hunted them before. They've never found our trail scent there before. They've never found us sitting in a tree or on the ground there before. It's altogether new. And you know, they have no defense for that. Eventually, if you keep doing that, sooner or later, and a lot of times it's very soon, like the first 15 minutes of the hunting season, there's going to be a big buck in front of you, and you're going to get him, or you should have. It can sure surprise you in a hurry. But at any rate, that's going to happen. It's just got to happen, because they have no defense for a hunter who keeps moving to a site they've never found them there before. It's always a total surprise when they find, oh, what's that hunter doing here? You know. So you keep doing that, you're going to get bucks, lots of them. For the rest of your life, you're going to get lots of them. And nothing makes it easier than using a stool. There's guys that are really good at getting a portable stand up in the tree silently. I'm not one of them. And besides that, I'm 83 and I don't want to do it anymore. But my sons do it. But it fails them often enough, so they only use them on opening weekend, and they're in pre-selected, pre-prepared stands, sites in trees. And after that opening weekend is over, when they're faced with having to make a move without making the noise of moving a tree stand, they go to their stools, and that can be done silently. And you know, the nice thing about stand hunting is when they do find you, they don't run away unless they're right there or you shot at them and they missed. They stay in their home ranges. They have no reason to flee. So every day you can we take as many bucks on the last day or two of a hunting season as we do on opening weekend. just because we hunt this way. So, there you go. There's more to know. You know, about a week or so ago, I wrote a blog. You have to go to my website. It's www.drnordberg, no Ken in there, drnordberg on deerhunting.com. Go to that and click on that, and you'll get that first page screen, and you'll see at the top here, you'll see Twitters and blogs and YouTube. Go to blog. And one of the last blogs I wrote is entitled Mile a Day Still Hunting. And you use stools. It's a stool hunt. You only use 8 spots. You sit an hour, just an hour, not a half hour. A half hour would be kind of silly. The deer are just settling down when you move again, and that's not a good way to do it. But if you sit an hour, the second half hour is when you're going to see the deer. But you pre-select. You go out in the woods and scout. Gee, this stretch here has got a lot of deer sign. It'd be a good place for this kind of hunting. And you pick out 8 spots in a mile. Just spot along a fairly straight line, so that you can go into the wind or crosswind. And if you might pick out several of these. They go at different angles, so no matter where the wind is blowing from, you can always go into the wind or crosswind. So you go to the first spot, you try to be there as early as you can, first light, or before the sun comes on. Sit down and sit there for an hour. And if you don't see anything and you're doing everything right, you're sitting on your stool hidden by cover. If you don't see anything, well, move. You move about 200 yards, and you move steadily without stopping. You don't sneak. Sneaking is, they hear that sound of you sneaking and those stops, all those stuff. They're not thinking about, oh, there's a deer feeding. They're thinking about, there's something sneaking this way, a wolf or something. And he's stopping and listening and looking around. And he's got big footprints. Boy, he comes down, he's breaking twigs all the time, and look at all the noise, and he drags his heel. That's a human. And a human doing that is not feeding. He's hunting for me. No. If you walk steadily, softly, pick your feet up, put them down lightly for the next 200 yards, go straight to the next spot, about 200 yards, where you got good cover, and put your stool down silent and sit there again. And there's a good place. You see something up there? Look, or before you even make a move, it's a good idea to check that area. Is there no deer up there? You see nothing moving? I guess it's safe to move now after 1 hour. Always know. Now, if you're going to be out there all day, bring a lunch along, and you'll be on your 4th or 5th stand site there, or calm still site. I think this is how still hunting got named. People were doing this long ago, and it got changed. People who still hunt now just walk all over the woods, spreading trails in every which way and chasing all the deer out of a square mile within a day. That's not the way you make these stops every couple hundred yards. And finally, the sun's getting low, there's touching the western horizon, you get to your last stop. But somewhere along the line, your odds of seeing a deer in this area where all this good deer sign was found, fresh and old, you're going to get a deer. It's a deadly way to hunt. This is the way still hunting should be done, by stressing the still part. Now, another good idea, and my brother and I used to do it all the time, is you go to that blog that explains this hunting method. You'll see a picture of my brother Bob. He was accidentally killed in 1972. One of the saddest days of my life. There's a picture of him and the big buck he got. Well, he and I were doing one of these mile-a-day still hunts parallel to one another. We were about 150 yards apart, going parallel, same compass direction, and stopping on every hour along the way to sit for an hour. And we're about halfway through that when a big buck came from my direction. Now, 2 guys going parallel like that, deer aren't going to run like crazy straight ahead of you normally. They'll go to the side. And 2 guys working together like that, and we had that happen quite a few times back in those days. That was before we became stand hunters. They would go to the side. Might go the wrong way, but they're just likely to go toward the other hunter, paralleling you. So that person gets a chance to take a deer, a buck, whatever. But it's a dandy way. Use 1 mile long stretch just once a hunting season or at the most, don't rest it. Stay away from it for at least 5 days, and then you can use it again. So make more than one of those trails so that if you want to hunt every day, like if you're planning to hunt 4 days, well, get 4 of them in different directions so you're never stuck by a bad wind direction. But it's a great way to hunt whitetails, really is. And there again, you need a stool. Another reason to buy a stool, some kind of stool. Make sure it's well painted with camo paint. You can carry it silently and put it down on the side. Try this. I think you might become addicted to it the very first time you try. You know, I'm not telling you to quit what you're doing, but after a day or two, after you haven't got one yet, try this. I think you're going to love it. So there you go, guys. I've given you a lot of really good tips for the opener this year, the gun season, and use them. And you know, the thing about this kind of hunting too, you know, you can be out there where there's a fair amount of other hunters running around the woods, you know. Now, I'm not saying 30 of them in a line making a drive, but there can be other hunters out there. You see maybe, let's say you see 1 to 3 other hunters in a day wandering around up there. Well, the smile of the day still also takes advantage of those guys that are always moving deer. And you're sitting there in the middle of those guys and you stop an hour at a time. You're in a good position to see the deer they don't see because they're moving them. And the deer tend to go to where it's really quiet out there. The birds aren't all acting crazy and all that kind of thing. People talking, other noises like that. So it's not a bad way to hunt in areas where there are other hunters that are still hunters. You're taking advantage of them. They're moving all the time. They have far less chance of seeing a deer. You sit an hour and a half, you've got a much, much better chance of seeing a deer. So there you go. Good luck, guys. And if I don't see you before the deer season, I'll see you afterwards. And I hope I got lots of good stories to tell you about in my next YouTube presentation. Well, before I leave, guys, I'd like to thank you for a lot of things. I want to thank you for watching me on YouTube. This has been an amazing climb. Numbers of people watching me on this are amazing. I'll soon be at 500,000. How about that? I think this time next year I'll be looking at 1 million. It just really, I really appreciate that. And I'm so glad I'm doing it for you because I have so much good stuff to teach you. I don't know if there's anybody who can teach you what I teach you because I'm the only person I know that's ever done this kind of research. But thank you a lot. I appreciate it. I'm glad I'm not working for nothing by doing all this. I want to thank you too for visiting my blogs and my Twitter account. They change, not daily, but several times a week. And I try to answer letters. I got a whole bunch of them to answer now. I'm getting ready to go deer hunting, so I'm really plagued for time right now. And I want to thank you for buying my book. My book sales are really doing well. I'm just so good to have that happen, and I hope all of you really get a lot from these books. I know you will. You're just going to appreciate having and learning what you have to learn from. And just yesterday, I got a letter from a guy from Duluth, Minnesota, who drove down, he was 6 years old, and a dad drove him down to Minneapolis to go to the Deer Classic in St. Paul, fairgrounds. To hear me talk, I put on seminars for so long now. Hear my deer hunting seminars, and they bought my books, and he learned from my books, and then a few years ago his father died, and he came down to the fair and found me putting on seminars about how to grow heirloom tomatoes at the horticulture building, which I do every year at the state fair. And I was so excited. And we had to get pictures and talk to his son. And his son got a nice buck last year. Young guy, I think he's 10 or 11, something like that, 12 maybe. Nice boy. We took pictures and talked about it. And he sent me a nice letter a couple days ago, and I sent him a set of signed guides of appreciation for the beautiful letter he sent me. But 3 generations of hunters like that learning from me. You know, I've been doing this for so long. Beginning one-on-one back in the 1960s, and then in books and magazine, more than 800 magazine articles, 17 books and seminars, and now the internet for so many years. And I just, it's so much fun to talk to people like that. So thank you a lot. I really do appreciate it, and it's making my life a little bit better at this time of the year. So can't wait to do some more work for you. So good luck, guys. Thank you. See you later.